Hello, everybody. This is Alex Mendoza. I'm here to talk to you about American photographer Francesca Woodman, which she lived from 1958 to 1981. Yes, she died at an early age, 22. But I wanted to start off with a quote of hers that I think exemplifies her very well. It reads, "This action that I foresee has nothing to do with melodrama. It is that life as lived by me now wise, a series of exceptions. I was, am, question mark, not unique but special. This is why I was an artist." Francesca was very conflicted and self-tormented at during her lifetime. But the thing is that I wanted to point out was that she sees that she's not unique, that she is special, and that gives her her motive and a reason for being the artist she is. And she also sees that life is not a series of exceptions, and that her work and the things that she sees is not melodrama. Obviously, her work, no, not obviously, but a lot of her work is very dramatic, and the action that she sees is not that. She sees something beyond that. But this again, I want to talk about a little bit of her background. And one of the things that I think is very interesting about her is her family. She was given a Yashica 2x4 2x4 at the age of 13 as a gift, and she was very influenced by her family. Her family was very artistic. Her dad was a painter and a photographer, and her mom was a ceramist and a sculptor. And they would her mother and father were very artistic too and very influential. They were both uh, in some sort of form of art. Her dad was a painter and a photographer, and her mom was a sculptor and ceramist. But another thing that kind of influenced her a lot to study where she went was the fact that they would take her to Italy a lot. And she eventually fell in love with this place, and she saw a lot of opportunity there. And so after that, she went to the Rhode Island School of Design, and she did very well. Then they gave her a grant to go study in Rome for a year, and then this is where most of her work was done. But other than that, kind of wanted to talk about her influences too. I feel like her work has a very surreal feel to it, but it also a kind of softer pictorial touch in some places. She was influenced by surrealism and also neo-pictorialist. She was also influenced by Max Klinger's work. This guy did uh, something and some etchings in 1881 that she found of great interest at that time. She kind of saw this like this the sexual desire that the things presented, and she kind of shows it in her work. She 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 emphasizes it a lot. But another person that I want to talk about was Cindy Sherman. That apparently Cindy Sherman was influenced by Francesca, and she actually quotes her and cites her quite often in a lot of her work nowadays. And one of the quotes that I found pretty interesting by her reads from Cindy's point of view, saying that they were both in New York at the same exact time. Well, we were both in New York at the same exact time, living in the same neighborhood, close in age, and pursuing the same art world, both expressing ourselves through photography, and yet we never met each other, but I but we knew each other. Cindy felt this strong connection with Francesca's work. She kind of found self-reflecting in her work, and the work of Cindy Sherman is very widely known to this day. But now to the piece. The title is "I Can No Longer Play." I Could No Longer Play by Instinct. It was made in 1977, made in Rhode Island, and she was in the contemporary movement, and the process is photographic film. But now moving on to other political and social uh, things that might have influenced her. I did a lot of research into this painting and I couldn't really find a lot, but if I did look at it from a historical point of view, during the 70s, uh, I feel like not a lot of things could have influenced her work. I say this because in the 70s there were a lot of bright colors, the big poofy hair, the fashionable bell bottoms, this whole sense of new fashion, and she was never really interested in that. She was kind of more attracted to old-fashioned type stuff like long sleeve gloves that you could see later in her pictures, old style lingerie, old style dresses, just a surreal look to it. And other huge events that happened during the 70s was war. There were several different type of war type influences going on. Obviously, the Vietnam War came to an end during the 70s. The Cold War was going on during that time, but you don't really see a lot of that emphasized in her work. There was also the oil crisis. Nothing really endorsed to that. I mean, other things that were made during the 70s were microwave ovens, the first voicemail system. But I mean, I don't feel like she sees any of that. I feel like most of her work is done by her and her only. And I believe that she was just a young woman with natural talent, a keen eye for photography, and she had a really good sense of humor. But moving on to the description, for light, I see that she uses the light pretty well in this picture. You can see that around her neck and breast area, it's a little bit of diffusing. You can also see it very well in her hands. So I feel like it's directional diffused lighting, and the source of the light, you can kind of see it. It's hitting her from up front because it's like or from the side or something. But I can't tell if this is either a light leak, a huge light leak, or actual lighting from behind. I believe it's done purposefully for another reason, but you can see that there's side lighting. The lighting reveals this blood here, the knife, and it also reveals her pale skin contrasted with this dark dress. And the light hides a lot of the backgrounds and a lot of the texture of the dress. Um, and it also kind of directs your attention to this this pale white skin, and also the knife and the blood, obviously. But this lighting, it's like a stepping stone towards the actual focus of the picture. Like you can see that there's a three-dimensional figure going on because you can't see the background very well, and it's kind of like fuzzier or like not focused. But you can also see that the lighting helps focus everything up here and here and here, and there it's pretty sharp here compared to the rest. There's not really a huge plane of focus. There's a selective focus going on right here, and there is a very shallow depth of field also. Can't see the back very well. And it's like a visual focus point mostly here. This lighting also blinds everything else in the background and just makes her pop out so much, contrasting with her, the dress, and everything. But moving on to the next thing is time. You can see that time is used here with a knife. She's moving the knife, which was done by slowing down the shutter speed of her camera, which was very widely used in her work. And you see that there is something moving in the scene, and it's a extrusive time, the which means that the picture is blurred. It's not like a single captured moment. It's not frozen, and this puts a lot of emphasis on the actual knife itself, and I feel like it 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 draws our attention mostly after we're done looking at the light, after we're done looking at the focus, and then we look at the knife, and then we put most of our attention to the knife and the blood, and we wonder what's actually going on at the time. And then this is when a lot of meaning starts coming into play. So we also start thinking a lot more deeply, such. But the actual depicted subject of the picture is a woman with a knife, some blood. She's in a black dress and she has a cut near her breast. And also, she has no head. Uh, I feel like the actual conceptual subject is crazy. I also did a lot more research into this photograph, and um, this photograph baffled me again and again. The title offers no help, but I think that's why I was drawn to this particular piece so much. The extensive research I've come up with offers many viewpoints from many different people, some writers, some critiques, and some average people. Woodman wrote little about her work, or any other type, or any of her work. Yeah, most of her work. She used a journal to write down personal thoughts, but she rarely wrote about her work. But rarely wrote about her work, and frequently untitled it. And to this day, now, it's most of it is unresolved. This is why many present day critiques have trouble translating her work into rooted standstill feelings. This piece, like most of her work, has had the head cut off, not shown or obscured, because, however, unlike most pieces, this actual piece depicts real or fake blood, which is not normal of her to do. And I read the meaning about cutting off the head of the subject, not literally, but it symbolizes liberation of oneself. And by doing this, she escapes her own mind of torment and thought of ultimate and thought of and ultimately free. Sorry, free to see her own self from a different viewpoint. She often wrote in her journal from a third person perspective, which supports what I just said. Um, and she often refers to herself as Francesca from a third point of view. With this in mind, the title offers a hint of light, maybe meaning some type of purpose. She titles the work, I can no longer do that, I can no longer play, I can no longer play by instinct, to explain her freedom of thought, to explain that her logical way of life is gone. She can't really think by instinct logically anymore. And she has taken her own life and moved onto a new realm. The light and focus and time she uses in the photograph also shows bright light surrounding her outline, almost as if she was radiating. This is why I said maybe the light link, or if it's actual light, is done on purpose, because she wants to make her seem like if she's some type of radiant angel, or some type of new life, or graceful being. uh, this in turn contrasts with her black dress, which in turn draws our focus to the pale skin. The lighting contrasts with the dress, focuses to the pale skin. Um, and after that, we're looking at the pale. After looking at her skin, we see the blood, and then we think about where's the blood, and then we see the knife, and then the knife is focused on and showing that time was at play, making us wonder if she'd taken her own life. But the thing is, now after we're done looking at all that and we're done analyzing most of that, she's pretty much free. She's free from her torment of the fear of problems and of old age. And the radiant woman has now broken through the chains of reality. However, moving on to my evaluation, which explains a lot of what I just said, I feel like my interpretation of the photograph is accurate because of her feelings at that time. She took her life in 1988. She jumped off the east side of a building in Lower Manhattan. Before this, she had already attempted to take her life in 1880. I feel as if most of her work was intended to convey her feelings and documented moments of life. The elements she chose are convincing and accurate. If she hadn't manipulated the light the way she did, as some sort of aura, I would have misunderstood her feeling of freedom for depression or maybe even despair. She had even once said that she had finally managed to try to do, quote unquote, to try to do away with myself. as neatly and concisely as possible. She said that she would rather die young, leaving various accomplishments, some work, my friendship to you, and some other artifacts intact, instead of peel-mell erasing of those delicate things. Her words resemble a sort of accomplishment, a sort of understanding of the future itself. And not just that, but her father George Woodman once said he quote unquote remembered Francesca's sense of humor very strongly. She was a lively conversationalist. Irony and comic characterization of other people were part of her speech. I remember going around Florence when she was 10 or 11, and she would notice the absurd. If we went to the butcher's shop, she would notice if the butcher had a face that looked like a lamb, say, and was there carving up lamb meat. She was always looking at the absurd and responding to it. After that, he claimed that there are photographers who do work where they have a sense that it's clowning around, but I don't think her work is like that. Francesca's work is very dramatic, very end of quote. But adding to that, I feel like Francesca's intentions behind the picture are deeper than we can really see. It's a bit difficult to understand because we're not in her life point, or we're not in the moment of her life, but it's there. I mean, in every element, because the picture itself is a picture of herself, and the whole point of her like keeping her radiant youth, her keeping an understanding of life. I feel like she was just very conflicted at the time, and she kind of really did understand the future, what she really felt or what she really wanted. But that's the end of that.